be doing this, so hopefully we'll be able to show you what we'd normally do in a classroom setting with the machine. Okay, so
Look at the other way.
There you go.
Switch camera. Okay.
All right, so hopefully this goes well, and if there's any questions you can ask. And Amrita's going to start with the demo here with our EEG machine.
Okay, guys, so my name is Amrita, like Roy said already, and Cecilia. Welcome to our CEG system that we use here at SickKids. Basically, what I'm going to do is just going to walk through the system with you, how the system works. We're going to cover steps like annotating on the system, how to turn the system off and turn it back on again. And if you're going to MRI or CT or any other procedure, how to disconnect the patient from the machine and to take the patient there. And then finally, of course, how to take the wires off and close the system totally down. So this is one of our CEG machines. It has, of course, the internet connection, and it has a power cable. The patient also is connected to the EEG machine with this gray cable, which goes into the amplifier. This is our amplifier. So the amplifier is where all the electrodes are plugged in. And so it's easy to see that they're stable and they're connected really, really well. And so we leave them plugged in. They're in a bag beside the patient on the bed here like that. So that just covers the EEG system. The important thing to remember, this is a video EEG, there's a camera, there's a microphone, and we have an infrared light in case you want to record the EEG and it's dark and it's kind of quiet and people are resting in the ICU system. So we have, this is a real recording that we're doing. Of course, not a real EEG, but we have a patient who's a doll that we're using. The ICU system is set up and it looks something like this. The top part will show the EEG and the bottom part will show the amplitude integrated EEG. In this case, we have the CFM. It is a real touch screen. So if you do anything to the screen, it'll do stuff. So if you want to review the EEG while you are having a patient that you're interested in something that's happened in the past, so you just go back to the button here that says review. If you notice, the screen color now has become green and you have the CFM underneath here. And you can move the CFM marker to where you would like to go. You can use the mouse or the cursor to where you would like it to move, and you can go back and look at the EEG tracing. When you're done that, you can come back right to the live recording. At the bottom right-hand corner, it shows the integrity of the electrodes that are placed on the patient's head. You don't need to worry about the rest of this stuff because that's what more concerns us. If the patient is going to say CT or MRI, we appreciate that if you guys just annotate, say, just start typing on the keyboard saying going to CT or MRI or any other procedure, just type it and we know that the patient's gone. So when the patient's disconnected from the system, we'll know that it's because they're gone to recording to another procedure. The other thing I'd like to point out too is also we have an event marker button. This is used in case where the patient is having a seizure, or if you want to annotate stuff like maybe you want to give meds that are be given to the patient and we haven't used those meds before, you can press the event marker. You can also type giving patient meds or whatever you were giving on the screen, just start typing. And you can also talk into the microphone. Suppose you're giving a phenobarbital load, or you're giving lorazepam or midazolam, or you increase any kind of doses, feel free to talk also into the microphone and you can do the annotations too. The patient that we do nowadays, as you'll see over here, we have a little doll. So this baby has CT MRI compatible wires. These wires are able to go into both the CT and the MRI scanner without causing much artifact. In order for you to go to CT or MRI, first you can make a note going to CT. Then you notice that there's 3 tails here. It says 1, 2, and 3. And if you notice at the tails, there's a little yellow button here. If you press that, what happens is it disconnects from the patient. So you'll disconnect these 3 and you can just put them aside. You notice that once you've disconnected the patient, there's these extra wires that are still attached to the patient. Now, these are extra monitoring wires for the EMGs, for the heart, and also we have a respiratory transducer on this baby. Now, these are not CT MRI compatible wires, but we do label them. You see a label here. It says heart, and this one says left arm, and this one says right arm. So we would like you to just peel them off because they're just sticky ambu leads. So once you peel them off, the hot ones comes off faster. Try to get her off. It's been on there for a while. So if you notice, take all of these off. So pretend they're all off. Then the baby is free to be able to go to CT or MRI. The other thing you need to remember is you need to remember to take this yellow documentation sheet. It actually will have the patient's sticker with his name, date of birth, and everything else in a barcode. And this will be signed by the technologist to put the electrodes on, what date and what time they were applied. So that helps us to annotate what time. You need to take this with you every time you go to CT MRI. This is usually attached to the machine or at the end of the patient's bed. So when you come back from CT and MRI, you just plug the machine, go back to machine, say back from CT. You can plug the tail end first. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna match the numbers. So this is number 2. So if you notice there's a little groove here, so plug there's number 2. We'll plug number 1, and then we can plug number 3. So number 3 is a little groove. And then the extra monitors that were off, you can just stick them back on. That's why we have little labels on them, flags, that help you to put everything on. So then you will notice that the EEG will be back again to recording. When you are gone to CT or MRI, the EEG doesn't show recording at all. Suppose you are going to transfer the patient to another room. Sometimes you guys do that, and the technology is not available. You can just shut the system down from here, just exit out, and say yes to the current study. And just shut the whole system down. It's basically a Windows computer. And then you can just shut it down from here. And you power it down. And then you can move the machine to another room. So I'm not going to do that because we want to just get back into the system again. So we'll just go back in here. Just waiting for it to reboot. Sorry. So here we're back into the system again. And then you can just go back to say, when you move the patient from a different room, you can shut it down this way, or I'll show the other way. When you shut it down the right way, you can just come back and go back to the database that we said and just go returning. If it's too much, there is a technologist on call. You can always call us. The technologist page and number is also glued onto the EEG machine board, and the username and the password is also on the machine in case you need to do something to the machine. The other thing we always like to talk about is how do you take the wires off the patient's head? Just in case the study is being done, you don't need the EEG recording anymore. You will shut down the study like I showed you before. And at the back of the machine, in the basket, we have a bottle of collodion remover. This is non-acetone and it's non-flammable remover. So we highly suggest that you put some in the kidney basin, and then you just take some of it and soak the EEG electrodes on the patient's head with it, and the electrodes will actually just come right off. You don't have to worry about it. And then you can just put the bag back. They're actually disposable. Please feel free to throw them away. And the other thing we also have is every machine has a laminated CEG tip sheet, which shows you how to do stuff like documenting seizure medication, taking the patient to MRI, reconnecting after MRI, reviewing the CEG, and how to stop the CEG. Like I said before, please don't unplug anything until the machine has been turned off, which means from the patient end. Transferring to another bed spot. The other thing we haven't discussed is this: you can actually just unplug the machine from the power cable and plug the network cable, and then you can just take the patient to the room that you want to put them in, plug it back, everything in, and just follow the options that'll come here. And then starting a CEG if that needs to be done. In some cases, it's head ultrasound. We also have put notes in case you need to take any electrode off and you need to put electrodes back on again. You can also call us if you need anything. Is there anything that I haven't covered, guys, you'd like to ask?
Somebody said, how do you unclean the electrodes?
Okay, so these are disposable electrodes. We don't actually clean them. The entire electrode from the top of the head to the ones in the jack box here, all the way down to here, they're actually disposable. We do not use these electrodes again. We don't need to clean any of them. Everything is totally disposable.
Somebody else had asked, are they disposable? So yeah, all of the electrodes that are on the head are disposable.
Yes.
And then the respiratory monitor is not disposable though.
Not disposable, yes.
But the ones on the head are disposable.
Yes, they're all disposable. Not all babies will have the respiratory transducer, which is a blue belt on the baby's respiratory area. This is what it looks like. I'm sorry, there's tape on it. It looks like this, and that is not disposable, and you'll realize it's not disposable. The rest are. So basically, when you take the electrodes off the head, just take them all off. You can put them in a bag, or you can wrap the ends up, put them in the back of the machine, and then we'll just come get the machine. Any other questions, guys?
I don't think so.
The other
Good. Oh,
The other thing I wanted to show you, I know we've described it in the CEG tip sheet, is that you can actually just pull the power cable out and pull the internet cable out, and you notice that the machine has been turned off. This is one way to move the patient to another room. If you're transferring from bed spot to a bed spot, that would be good. You can do that too. So when you finish transferring the patient, you can actually just come back. We'll plug it back in again and have a look how that goes. So just make sure you always plug it into a red power plug. So I just plugged in the internet cable and the power cable. So let's just restart this so you guys actually have an idea as to what happens. And in the meantime, if you have any other questions, you can ask me. If I haven't covered anything, it's been a little while.
And it's also important to plug the network cable in first, because if the power cable goes in and the computer starts and the study starts automatically without it being plugged into the network, it will then record locally, and the neurophysiologist will not be able to be reviewing it.
So while the system's booting up, if you notice anything different from what we actually had shown you during the EEG, like I mentioned earlier, the EEG technologist pager is on the keyboard. We've got a sticky note, like something, And just feel free to page us. If not, you can always call us through locating. The startup takes a little bit of time, guys, so we'll have to just be patient with that.
So somebody asked, what are your concerns related to other devices interference?
We don't usually have a lot of devices that have, do you want to give me an example of what? Okay, just before we go, you'll see the key, you'll see this thing come across and it'll show you your, I'm just going to put my password in. And if you notice, I didn't have to do anything much. So I'm just going to put my password back in. If you notice that it brought it back to the ICU teaching that we're doing, it'll bring you back to the patient. This is called the database. This is where all the recording happens. And so it'll bring it back to right where you left it, and the patient's name and everything should come up. So just have a double check. And if you notice now, the recording has started on its own.
So to give the example of an infusion pump pacemaker, the possible source of interference.
Okay, so sometimes what happens is we haven't had a lot of problems with pacemakers, but we have had problems with infusion pumps. Sometimes the drip of the infusion pump will cause an artifact on the EEG. So what we do in that case is that we make sure that our cables and our wires are not crossed with any of the infusion pumps or other pacemakers. You want to leave the EEG wire not running over anything or under anything. So we kind of always leave it to the side of the patient so we don't have that interference. So I'm just getting the machine started back again. And you notice that there was just one window on the machine. We didn't have the bottom window, which showed the amplitude integrated EEG. So you just would go to trends and click on that and just minimize the window to the size you want it. And you notice that the recording has already started on its own. We didn't have to do too much. So this is one of the good things about this monitor, is that it's able to restart and it'll keep all the data that's recorded. And like I said, you can always call us back if you want. And the other thing I just want to tell you is the camera. So once you move a patient, you'll notice that the camera might be in a different place. So there's just two ways to move it. You can turn the whole thing around if you want, the stand, or from here, this helps the camera twist around and go this way. So just make sure the patient is always on the camera and tighten it up. So just sort of be mindful of making sure the patient's always recording on the camera. Any other questions, guys?
I think maybe there's none. So thank you so much, Amrita and Roy, for taking us through this virtual tour. If you have any questions, anyone, you can also email me or pass the emails on to Roy and Amrita.
That's for sure. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so everyone, our next talk is in 30 minutes. So we are going to have Ishvinder Bathal and Dr. Palsine. They're going to speak to us on cardioembolic stroke. And then Dr. Nicole McKinnon on strategies for neuroprotection. And then Vanna will take us through some case studies on. So we'll see you at 3.